You're watching the Eternal Tournament Series.
Hello and welcome to round 4, season 4, week 4 of the Eternal Tournament Series. I am Truedawn. As always, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host Bairdrus.
Hey everybody, we got another great matchup for you guys coming up. Two of our regular tournament series players that have become quite well known over the course of the series. We got, of course, Shed coming up here on Cumbry Aggro, which is slightly an interesting choice for him. Not what I would normally expect Shed to be on. His opponent, tvkelley on aReNGee, is going to be on a FJS version. So what people sometimes term as traditional armory. He's going to be playing the smuggler stash in the version, which is really the notable difference, as well as Corey.
Yeah, that's one of the big choices. This is like pretty standard. Just 4 harsh roll quarry, all the normal stuff you'd see, 2 Icarias, 1/1 split on Daisho, Stone Scarmall. Only 3 Throne Warden. I think that's egregious. I know some people have done it. I think that card's the best card in that deck, but some people have elected to cut it. So, but just in general, this is a pretty standard build of Armory. And on the side of Shed's Cumbry Aggro, it's a pretty aggressive deck. It's going to be hard for the Armory deck of tvkelley to really react in the way it needs to combat this deck effectively.
Yeah, definitely very interesting. We don't often see Cumbry Aggro anymore in the tournament series. Like, it's definitely not a deck I've seen brought out in quite a while. Everybody's been favoring the mid-range or Voda combo builds. Not as much Voda combo, but big Cumbry, certainly. There's been a ton of that. And yeah, so it's a little refreshing, honestly, to see Cumbry Aggro get brought out. It's even got the 4X Tinker Overseer tech that we've been seeing Rakano players actually pick up since the nerf of Crownwatch Paladin.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's pretty cool to see that the Tinker Overseer is just like a good evasive creature. Crownwatch Paladin's still good, but the fact that there's such a prevalence of tokens now really hurts its ability to be a playable card. And even though it has Warcry, it's one of the very few cheap Warcry creatures, it's still like hard to justify playing, or at least Shed has seen it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And tvkelley with an interesting hand after his mulligan. Shed's definitely got a nice curve start here with the Tinker Overseer and the Valkyrie Enforcer. tvkelley, unfortunately, going to be 1 turn behind here since he is lacking Fire Influence. Although I say that and he picks up a seat with his Inspire. Now he's going to have access to Torch and Rakano Artisan and sort of Ikaria on the following turn. So this is looking very solid for him.
Yeah, that's certainly a reasonable curve of cards. On the side of Shed, he's just to deploy his Tinker Overseer and actually has like running threats. He can potentially Vodkin staff this Tinker. He can deploy his Valkyrie if he wants to. He has a bunch of ways to go about this, and he does elect to just suit up the 2/2, which is going to put tvkelley under a lot of pressure to have something to deal with it. Really only Vanquish for this amount of mana.
Yeah, he's going to need to find Vanquish, unfortunately, and tvkelley not finding it. He's just going to have to use a Roland's Favor this turn and chip in for 2, which means Shed is in a prime position to cause a very large beatdown here. I mean, this 5/5 Tinker Overseer is nothing to snub your nose at, and now with the Valkyrie Enforcer coming down, there's just so much air superiority on the side of Shed currently. tvkelley, fortunately enough, is going to have some form of an answer here between the Sword of Ikaria or the Torch, depending on which way he elects to go with it. And actually, I think what we're going to see here is we're actually going to see a combo play come down from tvkelley. We're going to see a Torch plus a Sword of Ikaria taking care of the Tinker Overseer, and that is, in fact, what we do see.
Yeah, that's still fine for Shed, though. That Vodkin staff threatens to come back later. He has a Carnosaur coming down in the not-too-distant future, and he still has this Valkyrie in play, which is still coming in for 3, putting tvkelley down to 11. And he was fortunate enough to draw this Sandstorm Titan, so pressure is definitely on tvkelley.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we see Throne Warden coming down on the side of tvkelley, gives him a little bit of armor and a blocker, but unfortunately for him, Shed is just going to drop this Predatory Carnosaur and clear it off the board, and now tvkelley certainly on the back foot and actually just going to lose the matchup at this point. Is not going to be able to block the 14 power that Shed was able to mount. A very impressive showing right here by this Combri aggro deck. And it kind of comes down to the fact that tvkelley faltered on his power just a little bit and elected to play a little bit greedier. Instead of using the torch to take care of the Tinker Overseer, he elected to drop the Recano Artisan to buff the deck and ended up getting punished for it quite heavily by Shed, as Shed was allowed to play the Vodafone Staff on the Tinker Overseer and start punching for 5 in the air.
Yeah, and we do have deck lists. Players have access to each other's deck lists. So he did know that Vodafone Staff is one of the cards that was available there. So it is certainly a risky play. You generally do want to get the Artisan play as early as possible because if top pick a weapon, it's better. But that certainly did seem risky, and he did get punished for it.
Yeah, you always have to consider when you're playing a deck like Armory, like you are a control-ish style deck. And when you're playing a control-ish style deck with that kind of approach, you have to recognize that if you don't have an answer to the worst case scenario, then when that worst case scenario pops up, you're going to be in a ton of trouble. So if you can go ahead and prevent that from the get-go, you definitely have to consider it. And yeah, unfortunately for tvkelley, Recano Artisan just not going to do it there. So we are going to take a look at a player's sideboards real quick, as we are going to go ahead and edit up the decks. And we see Shed going ahead, and was he cutting out some of his early game or converting?
He's starting with the 90 and then just cutting things. That is the traditional way people have elected to sideboard in the Eternal Tournament series. Just have a 90 card deck with your sideboard and your main deck, and then just take out whatever you don't want to do. It's kind of what you would do in Magic as well. You would like shuffle your sideboard into your main deck and just take out the bad cards.
Yeah, very interesting here. We're going to see Steward of Prophecy currently hanging out in the list, and Praxis Displacer coming out, which makes a ton of sense. Really, the only units that you're going to be hitting with Praxis Displacer are units that you really don't want to see the enter the battlefield go off on them. So yeah, we see Praxis Displacer coming out, Steward of Prophecy coming in. We also see 3 Finest Hours coming in from Shed to allow him to attack over his opponent, as well as just create some burst damage when he needs to close the game out quickly.
Yeah, that's definitely pretty helpful for that sideboard option. I think that the main things that tvkelley is going to want in this matchup, probably Valkyrie Enforcer, the Obliterate. His sideboard is not particularly well set up to deal with this matchup. He does not have a lot of things for early aggression or like more efficient removal or really anything. So it's going to be rough going into game 2 after already having lost game 1 without your deck really getting appreciably better.
Yeah, we'll possibly see like 1, maybe 2 copies of Ruin come in to deal with some of the weapons, although it's not fantastic. Maybe another Valkyrie Enforcer and some of the Obliterates. We'll see how well that ends up working out for him here as we do get into the mulligan phase for both players.
Yep, and the game will start moving forward in early turns. Shed has a pretty reasonable hand. He has several 2-drops, a 5-star to protect them, stand together. Steward of Prophecy for the potential Icarias and Throne Wardens as well. So if Shed's able to draw power, this hand is going to be pretty potent.
Yeah, and that really is what this matchup is going to rely on, is can Shed draw power? Because on the other side of the table, we see tvkelley very light on interaction, does pick up a Recano Artisan off the top. Nice little pickup for him there. But yeah, this is definitely going to come down to what Shed can draw. If Shed continues to miss power drops, he's going to be in a world of hurt here. But fortunately for him, he did have the Seat of Progress, and he was able to establish a Awakened Student and play the Seat here, which creates a nice, reasonable board for him, given that tvkelley doesn't have any interaction in his hand until turn 5.
Yeah, that's definitely a problem for Kelly. And Shed hitting the power was a big deal. Now, this is just going to put a lot of pressure on tvkelley to have things like Torch, sort of Icaria, whatever cheap removal he can potentially get out to trade with these creatures properly. And Relat's Favor is not really going to do it. If Shed draws another power, we could see this become a runaway. Even the Zenith Obelisk isn't the worst thing in the world.
No, it's certainly not. And this is also going to come down, in my opinion, to how Shed elects to play around tvkelley's turn 5. If he recognizes and respects the harsh rule, which he should from turn 5, then Shed will be able to kind of get the blowout here with Stand Together and really start to turn this game completely in his favor, because tvkelley's holding 2 smuggler stashes with no weapons or units to recur with them. Not great for him. He does have an Obliterate as well, but outside of that, it's harsh rule and some power. And not a lot going on in his hand. He really needs some interaction here.
Yeah, this is one of the things Armory struggles with, is dealing with a large number of early creatures. Their weapons are very strong against like medium-sized creatures in the mid-game, things that cost the same as the weapon. Harsh Rule is definitely going to be a good way to catch up, or it would be if there was not a Stand Together on the side of Shed.
Yeah, that Stand Together is absolutely going to be huge. And we see another Awakened student getting played from Shed to follow up here. And I mean, tvkelley is in a terrible situation at this point. Like, he has a Vanquish to take care of one of the Awakened students, the 4/4. But I mean, Shed still has 5 power worth of units on the board. And he does have a Finest Hour as well as a Xenon Obelisk. So it's entirely possible it'll be easy for him to just, go ahead and scale this game out here, as we do see tvkelley being dropped to 5.
Yeah, and that attack will likely come in. We do see the Amber Monument off the top. 6 damage will come across, bringing it down to 5.
Yeah, and tvkelley plays his single interactive spell. He uses his Obliterate coming up here, and I mean, that's just going to do it. There's no way around it. Shed has clearly just run over him in this matchup. tvkelley, not a great draw. So Shed was able to just capitalize on that and run over him. And Combri Aggro, not a deck we see a lot of, as I mentioned, but is still very potent, and people cannot forget that.
Yeah, the Combri Aggro deck is definitely able to utilize a lot of the early creatures available in Combri, namely Awakened Student, to get underneath people, but also get transition into the very potent Combri mid-game you see from the higher curve deck involving Miskasset and Iron Thorn. So it's just a very resilient, potent, aggressive deck. Resilient is the main thing about it. It's very hard to deal with their creatures. They're just either too big or too sticky or whatever. And it does look like we are going to be moving into our next match in not too long, with level 13 David on Chalice versus Betteriez on Combrano Plate. Chalice is a deck that has grown very popular in the past couple weeks. Just pretty much a control deck, just abusing the power of Crystalline Chalice. Very reliant on that card, very focused on making that card as good as it can be. And Combrano Plate, a deck that's essentially just a slower mid-range version of Rakano Plate, eschewing things like Oni Ronin and a lot of the early creatures for a much more potent top end. And I do think I lost Bairdrus, so sorry about that. So we could move into the our backup match pretty soon. Okay, so we're going to take a short break, and then we will be back when we resolve some technical difficulties and get Bairdrus back and do some stuff.
Yep. Yeah, I'm back. Sorry, guys. Sorry about that. I just had a quick disconnection error there. And fortunately, I'm back just in time, because we are jumping straight into our, what I believe is game 3 of Betteriez with the Combrano Plate deck against level 13 David with Chalice, as Truedawn did say. So this is going to be an interesting matchup. Who are you going to give the edge to in this one, Truedawn? You going to give it to Chalice here, or do you think Combrano can actually get up under Chalice in time?
I think the Combrano Plate deck is going to present some pretty hard to deal with threats for the Chalice deck. If the Chalice deck does happen to have the removal lineup in such a way where they can deal with whatever Voltron Combrano Plate presents with them, then they're going to be okay. But if they don't, then they're just going to not be able to beat it. They're going to get run over. That said, the Chalice deck does have a wide array of removal between Scorpion Wasp, Vanquish, Harsh Rule, Desert Marshal. They have a lot of ways to combat stuff like this. So I probably do give the edge to David, but there are certainly draws the Combined Blade deck can have that the Chalice deck just simply cannot deal with.
Yeah, and I definitely think I am in agreement there. Chalice is just such a hard deck to beat. I mean, really, what angle can you attack it on? Truedawn is the only way to just get under it and then present these big threats that they have a hard time to deal with, because you can't grind the deck out. It's the definition of grindy.
Well, I do think Vodafone goes over the top of it, but if you're trying to go underneath it, I think Rakano Plate, possibly with 12 1-drops, could get underneath it. The deck still does have a reasonable amount of setup. It does have things like Comber Healer, Temple Scribe that do help blunt the aggression. It's not like that's going to be a slam dunk matchup, but I do think there are iterations of Rakano you can build that would have a favorable matchup against this deck.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do see Betteriez holding on to a Protect in his hand, unfortunately spoiled for him by the fact that level 13 David saw a pause there. And Betteriez in a bit of an awkward position currently on the board. No fire influence to be found, so no fire card's going to be coming down from him in the meantime, which does make up quite a few of his powerful threats in the deck, such as the Champion of Glory and the Sword of Icaria.
Yeah, that's one of the more important things. And hold on, sorry, my stream got backed up. Okay, there I go. Silverwing Familiar comes down, and that's one of the ways that Betteriez can win this game. The only thing that really profitably deals with it is Scorpion Wasp. We do see that level 13 David does have it, but there are definitely ways this game can play out, especially if Betteriez potentially has a torch to protect the Familiar from the Wasp, where he can plate that up and just run over level 13 David.
Yeah, hopefully for Betteriez here, he has a Vanquish. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it since he went ahead and silenced the Sandstorm Titan. Familiar is able to attack in the air now, but Sandstorm Titan going to cause quite a headache for Betteriez in the meantime. The 5/6 beater always a threat when it's coming down on turn 4.
And it looks like David is contemplating whether or not he wants to deploy some flying blockers. He does elect to do so, put a 4/4 into play. This actually, he should be fine. There is no red influence on the side of Betteriez, so Deforged Plate is not being threatened because it requires double. So there's not a lot that Betteriez can do to punch through this turn, at least.
Yeah, he's going to have a hard time dealing with this board state. I mean, a 4/4 and a 5/6 are actually quite large threats when you consider what Betteriez is really packing in his deck. He has some Sandstorm Titans of his own, but outside of that, he doesn't have a ton going on. He does find the Vanquish for the Owl here, at least. But in the meantime, he is taking quite a beat down from the Sandstorm Titan, and his Lumen Defender is going to give him some extra health and create a fantastic blocker that Betteriez really is not going to have a way to get through.
Yep, and here is the Hammer of Might, so the Silver Familiar will get in at least one time. So now it's just going to revolve on whether or not Betteriez has anything to protect this Familiar from the Wasp and like possibly race back. That's likely his only shot.
And it's unlikely that he does have a way to protect it, since obviously Betteriez still has no fire influence. He doesn't have the torch to immediately follow up here. And he's holding Protect, but Protect not going to protect you from this combat damage. And the Silverwing Familiar goes down. He does have a follow-up Silverwing Familiar, but he's going to have another Hammer of Might to establish onto it to have any chance of winning this game. He's just taking too much damage.
Yeah, the race is not in his favor currently, even if he was to Hammer of Might this Familiar. And we do see him find the red source, so he does now have access to red mana. The Silver Familiar coming for 1. He does have chump blocks in the Titan. Like, the Titan is the only thing doing damage, so the Champion of Glory is also a relevant blocker, so it's possible that he can stabilize a little bit, like chump block the Sandstorm Titan or just take 5, untap, like maybe draw a second red, plate. There are definitely ways that Betteriez can come back in this game. David is largely out of gas, except for this Channel the Tempest, which could obviously yield more business.
Yeah, this is going to come down a lot to what this Channel the Tempest is able to pick up, and he does choose to fire it off right now. I'm curious to see if Betteriez is going to go ahead and throw the Protect on his own face to stop this 5 damage from hitting him. Certainly a consideration there. Unfortunately, since we do see that he has the Protect, it's going to be hard for level 13 David to actually remove any of these units, which kind of has stalled him out in the meantime. You know, Batteries can find some sort of weapon to equip to the Silverwing Familiar. The clock could very much start to swing in his favor.
Yeah, and we see that level 13 David no longer comfortable attacking into the 4/6, and also 1 damage short of being able to kill the 4/6 with the Channel of the Tempest in the previous turn. There was an argument for potentially waiting, although he did sniff out the Protect earlier, so he decided, I guess, that either way it wasn't going to matter, might as well use their mana efficiently. But now the board is stabilized for Batteries, and if he can just draw into some plates or some stuff like that, there's definitely a path for him forward.
Yeah, there is a path forward, certainly. And, you know, in the meantime, level 13 David really hasn't established a way for himself to win this game. He has plenty of ways to not lose in the Luma Defender and 2 Combri Healers. I mean, this is going to provide him a ton of health, but he still hasn't found a way to actually make sure that he can take a victory here.
Yep.
I am in favor of popping the Aegis here.
Yeah, I think that is the most use for it. There's already really no profitable attacks aside of Batteries. The 3 health doesn't really change that. Even if you pump 3 health into the Sandstorm Titan, I guess 9, it can attack now. Not really, just bounces with the champion. So I'm not sure I agree with that. I don't know what that changes in regards to combat math. The only thing you can lose to is the Silvering Familiar unchecked if they draw something. So we'll see if that comes back to bite David, but in the interim, the Familiar remains a 1/1.
Yeah, and we are going to see a mostly full board swing out of level 13 David here, just trying to push through a couple points of damage here and there. Gonna try and let the Sandstorm Titan clash with the 4/6 Champion of Glory to allow his 1/5s to go through. Unfortunately, though, the 1/5s are pretty much guaranteed to go through anyway, so this Sandstorm Titan attack is a little weird. And it's even more weird that Batteries didn't choose to block it and with the 4/6 Champion of Glory. Like, he just lost a unit for no reason. How many copies of Stand Together is level 13 running?
I believe it is 2. That is the traditional number.
Okay, so playing around Stand Together, that's probably why then. Batteries really needs to dig a weapon here. This is going to be very important now.
Yep. Valkyrie Enforcer, what does that do? It's just going to take out the flyer. Now the 1/1 can keep coming in. But now it's vulnerable to Desert Marshal potentially, or unless the Protect can save it. But it's getting like slimmer for Batteries. Although like David like kind of doesn't have great attacks yet either. He's like okay attacks.
Well, he's guaranteed to get 5 of these units through, so he's guaranteed to get 7 through on this turn, actually, if he wants to go ahead and jam here. Yeah, if he's willing to throw everything here, he's going to lose a few of his units, but he can still push 7 damage in here and set Batteries to 1.
I think because it's not lethal, you just jam in with the Lumen Defenders, make it so next turn it is lethal, and then try and kill them next turn, because putting them to 1 doesn't do anything. You want to put them to 0.
Yeah, absolutely. Level 13 David having no reach here, so he is just going to chip away, and this is going to put Batteries in a position where he is actually likely going to need to keep the Silverwing Familiar home this turn. Definitely do not agree with these attacks in the air.
Yeah, this seems really aggressive. I know he is the aggressor, but on this given board, the crackback he is currently facing down is pretty substantial. If he was able to pump the Silverwing at all, then maybe the lifelink makes it different. But as things currently stand, I do believe that David has a pretty decent attack.
I believe that's just lethal. He has 5 blockers for 11 units. I mean, 6 of the units go unchecked, and everything but 3 has 2 or more attacks. So yeah, we're going to see 9 damage coming through here, I do believe. And that will close this game out for level 13 David. I do believe the series was 1-1 up to this point.
Yes, this was game 3.
Yeah, game 3. So level 13 David going to take the win here, knocking Batteries down and picking up a nice little win for himself with the TJP Chalice deck. Unfortunately for Batteries, Cambrano not able to pick it up.
Yeah, it's a good showing by Betteriez, though. He wasn't able to enact his core game plan. That deck's trying to build a Voltron. It does have more resilient threats, like baseline good threats, like Copper Hall, Elite, Sandstorm Titan, stuff like that. Which there isn't need plate usually, but in that matchup, it's going to be one of the most important things. So, unfortunately, it didn't go his way.
Yeah, not quite. Not quite, but good showing out of level 13 David, still showing off the power of the Chalice deck. And Chalice is very, very strong. You know, as we mentioned, Truedawn, it is just such a strong deck, and you really have to fight it on one of two axes. Either you play Voda combo, because that's really one of the only decks that can go over top of it, or you have to play some sort of Rakano-style deck and go under it.
Yeah. I do think that Chalice is likely the best mid-range deck in the format, so trying to fight it anywhere in the middle of the spectrum is going to be a losing proposition, but I do think that there is space on the extreme ends of the format, both on the low end and the high end, that can exploit Chalice.
Yeah, there is certainly a way to beat Chalice. It's just not always super clear-cut, and it is a very hard deck to fight. Much like Voda combo, it just has a crazy potential to scale out of control and grind its opponents down. Voda combo a little bit more upfront impactful. If you can put the pieces together, you can obviously assemble your giant turn where you essentially ensure your victory. Chalice, quite a bit grindier, going to take you a little bit longer to get to that point, but you do have that sense of inevitability where you really do feel like when you are the Chalice player in certain positions, you can kind of just go forever. And Crystalline Chalice does give you so much card advantage. And on top of that, you have great threats and answers. I mean, Channel the Tempest, David's deck actually only playing 2 of them. Is that standard now, Truedawn, or are people still playing 3 or 4?
For which card? I'm sorry.
Channel the Tempest.
Channel the Tempest. I think the deck should play 4, but I have seen 2 be the popular choice.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there, actually. I like to see 4 Channel the Tempest. I like it as a finishing card, and when you're playing Chalice, you generally are accepting that you're going to get to those late game turns. Like, you're not in a huge you're not in a huge position to lose the game very early unless you are against those very quick Stone Scar or Rakano style aggro decks that can pressure you out. And you do have a ton of life gain as well. You know, Cumber Healer and Scorpion Wasp help blunt that early aggression and allow you to get to cards like Channel the Tempest. And Channel the Tempest is just such a fantastic card. It pumps out so much damage on your opponent, or takes care of a unit, and also draws you 3 cards. So fantastic card. Definitely think 4 of it should be in the deck, but clearly level 13 David not needing it there, only having 2 included in the deck and doing it just fine.
Yep. And I do believe that is going to conclude round 4 for us. We will be back shortly with our penultimate round 5. So stick around for that, and we will be back shortly.